The Gemara tells us in Rosh Hashanah, in another location, that when a Kohen comes upon a tzibur, 10 Jews, he must bless them. If he's summoned to give a bracha, if you say Kohanim, he has an obligation to bless them. It's a mitzvah saseh. And it's based on Kosovo, Chos Bnei Yisrael. And the Birchas Kohanim are 3 brachos, which we're discussing right now. So we're in the Balaturim yesterday. The Balaturim explained that Yivorach Hashem Yishmerecha, which is speaking specifically about a monetary blessing. This is in the merit of Avraham Avinu. The first bracha has 3 words. It alludes firstly to the 3 Avos HaKadoshim, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Besides, we find the word bracha mentioned by Avraham Avinu 3 times. So therefore, it's in his merit, specifically in his merit, but also in the merit of the 3 Avos, that we merit bracha. That's Yivorach Hashem Yishmerecha. It's interesting. We find that initially Yitzchak wanted to give the bracha, the birthright to Esav. What is the birthright? The birthright was a monetary blessing. Because and as we explained then, the name of the Siforno, Yitzchak understood that Yaakov was more special than Esav. Yaakov was Tam Yeshiva. He dedicated his life to Torah. And who was Esav? Esav was Ish Soder. He was a hunter. So the concept of Yisach and Zvulun originally was Yitzchak's concept. Esav would be responsible for the material of Yaakov. Yaakov's the Yisachar, and Esav is the Zvulun. Because Yitzchak didn't really understand how evil he was. And if Esav, Chas v'Shalom, would have the purse strings, he would actually choke and cut off the lifeline to Yaakov. And Rivka understood this, because Rivka understood who Esav was. Therefore, it was through prophecy, she was told, tell your son Yaakov, immediately take the birthright, which is rightfully his. Because the brachos are given to Esav, there will not be a Yaakov. Because ein kemach ein Torah. Yaakov went and he impersonated Esav, and he took the birthright, the brachos. And the whole strife between Yaakov and Esav, that we say Esav Sonei Yaakov, is rooted in that story. Because Esav felt that Yaakov had duped him. He had stolen the birthright. The Gemara there's a medrash in the beginning of Vayikra. We find the 3 species that qualify to be a korban, 3 domesticated species. Shor Ketzabes, the ox, the sheep, and the goat. So it says why the ox, b'schusa shel Avraham Avinu. Because we find that when he hosted the angels, the guests, it says, Ela Bokor Rotz Avram. He rushed to the Bokor. Bokor is the shore, the cattle. Therefore, in the schus of Avraham Avinu, that's why that species qualifies to be the korban, to bring about kapara. Kesev, the sheep, the schus Yitzchak, because the Akedah was a ram. A ram is a sheep. And the goat in the schus of Yaakov, because when Rivka told Yaakov to take the birthright, to make the delicacies for Yitzchak, she says, go to the flock and you should take shnei gedoy yizim. Take 2 goats and I will prepare the delicacies for your father. So in the merit that Yaakov went and took 2 goats, those 2 goats, what was the value of those goats? Those goats represent what? The survival of Klal Yisrael. Because if not for those 2 goats, he couldn't have impersonated Esav, it wouldn't have been sufficient, because he had to bring something which is the equivalent of what Yitzchak had requested from Esav. So the reason why there's material for Klal Yisrael is the merit of those 2 goats. Therefore, the goat is the species which brings about kapara for Klal Yisrael. This is medrash. We're telling the explicit medrash. So therefore, the whole concept of ein kemach ein Torah, So why do we have the kemach? Why do we have sufficient material to underwrite our ability to be involved in Torah? It's because what Yaakov had done through those two goats. We're saying that's the material bracha. The material bracha is what is Avram Avinu. He should bless your possessions, and they should be secured. That you shouldn't be victimized. That's Avram Avinu. So we explained Avram Avinu was Hachdos Orchim. However, you could say the birthright. The only reason why Yaakov was able to receive the birthright was because of what? Because of Avram Avinu. If Avram wouldn't have come out of the kiln, you realize there wouldn't have been a Yaakov. So each one is the cause of the other. Avram came out of the kiln, and he was able to do what he did afterwards. He hosted the angels. That was a result of coming out of the kiln. As a result of that, and why did he come out of the kiln? Because there had to be a Yaakov. That's the only reason why he came out of the kiln. And the Midrash quotes a pasuk that who's redeemed Avram from the kiln? It's Apoda Yaakov, it's Avram. Yaakov redeemed them. That since there had to be a Yaakov, therefore Hashem had taken Avram out of that kiln. If there wouldn't have been had to be a Klal Yisrael, he would have died, and he died on Kiddush Hashem. But factually, we seek from here that the material bracha is what is Avram Avinu. Yvorach Hashem Yishmerecha. Yor Hashem Panav Yelech V'chuneko. So if you take a look at the Balaturim, Yor Keneged Yitzchok, Shro Ba'Kedo, Umeis Ve'er Kodesh Baruch Hu Se'en V'Chiyu. He cites a picture of Lezer that when Yitzchak was on the Mizbeach, he passed away, and God brought him back to life. That's God illuminated his eyes. He restored his neshama. That's Yoyer. So he says, Yor lehepich re'i shoy ola rio. He was like a burnt offering. He was an olas re'io. So he says in the pasuk, Yorashem Ponavi Lecho Vichineko, the 5 words, listen to this, and the 20 letters. What is the significance of the 5 words of 20 letters? It says Yitzchak was 20 generations from the beginning of existence. We speak out Adam to Noach, Noach to Avram. So in Avram's generation, Yitzchak was born. So that's 20 letters, and Shoma Chamisha Chumshei Torah. That's 25. So Rashi says, what is Yor Hashem Ponav Lecho? Yor Hashem Ponecho. He will illuminate your face. But it's going on Yara Lechoponav Sochkos. God will show you a smiling countenance. Ponav Tsuvos. And because of that, when you be exposed to his smiling countenance, you will merit to have chen, to have charm. Take a look at the Sephora. He says something beautiful. If you take a look, Yegali nechabor ponov lahabit niflos vitoroso masov. He will illuminate your eyes to be able to appreciate the wonders and appreciate God from the Torah and from his masim. Through the Torah and through looking at creation, you'll be able to appreciate what Hashem is. You hear this? You know, the Alta of Kelm once said, David Bell says, Hashemayim is sapent called Kale. When David looked at the heaven, he says, the heavens speak God's glory. When we look at the heavens, do we see God's glory? What a beautiful, sunset, sunrise, the galaxies. David, when he looked at Shemayim, he saw a Shemayim Samkrut Kale. It speaks God's glory. Why? Because again, what's the bracha yor? That through the Torah, he illuminates your eyes. He activates your spirituality, that you appreciate who he is and what his actions are. You see his fingerprint in every aspect of creation. We say in Shachris, "Ma Rabu Masech Hashem Kula B'Choch Mosisa," right? Ma Rabu. So we mentioned the name of the Ramak or Mushkur Viro. The word Ma Rabu doesn't mean how numerous are your actions. Ma Rabu means how profound are they. That every detail of creation is a level of genius that it has the fingerprint of Hashem on it. Everything, there's nothing in creation which is not Rabu. It's profound, it's beyond, it's unfathomable. Who said these words? Rabbi, that's David. Because it's through the Torah he saw Niflos Hashem. He saw the wonders of Hashem. So that's Yor Hashem Panav Elecha. When you study the Torah, he will illuminate your eyes to have a capacity to decipher and process and appreciate who he is and what is and the value of what his actions are. Be amazed by it. That's the bracha of Yor Hashem Panav Elecha. But he says something interesting to Sefarno. When could you realize that? He says, Acha shetasi tzorchecha birchosa. It's only once you no longer have the distraction of the material concern, then you're able to now have that focus. As I always say, the key in life is not to be distracted. That's focus. If a person is burdened with livelihood and he's in need of material, that's a distraction. Hashem will bless you with the material. Now that the material is in place, because Kemach Torah, now you are Hashem Panav Elecha. Now you're able to have that level of clarity because you're no longer distracted with the material needs. What I'm reading to you is the Sefarno. After you assume your needs, your material needs through the bracha, now you're Hashem Panav Elecha V'chuneko. The Gemara tells us that due to the partnership of Yisachar and Zvulun, which was established by Yaakov Avinu, to what degree, why was Zvulun chosen to be the tribe to assume full responsibility for the material needs of Yisachar? So the Medrash tells us that when Zvulun provided for Yisachar, it says, Som ochel bepiu, bepiv shel Yisachar. They literally put the food in the mouth of Yisachar. I mean, it didn't mean they spoon-fed them. Doesn't mean that. It means that the degree of concern for the needs of Yisachar, Zvul had such an appreciation for Torah, he did not allow Yisachar to be distracted for a moment. That it was literally, he would put the food into his mouth. Yisachar would come home, everything was covered. His food budget, his clothing budget, everything was covered. He had no concern. He never had to think about the material. And because he never had to think about the material, the Gemara tells us, therefore, whenever there's a question of making the calculations, mathematical calculation for the Kiddush HaChodesh, or whether you make a leap year, who would they go to? They would go to Yisachar. If there would be a ruling and they wanted to know whether there was any fallacy in the calculation for the ruling, they'd pass it before Yisachar. Because Yisachar had that clarity. Why did Yisachar have that clarity? Because Zvulun provided every aspect of the material that he didn't even have to think about it. So because there was no distraction, therefore they had that special clarity of Torah. That's what the Svirno says. Yor Hashem Panav Elecha V'chuneko. Because since Hashem has provided all your material needs, now you have the capacity to be able to be touched by the Torah, to be illuminated, then now you can fully appreciate what Hashem is and to see the world as God's creation. Just giving you an insight in what the Sforno is saying over here. What's Yisha Shem Ponov? We find in the Yud Gimel Midas Arachmim, no say Ovod v'feshev v'chato, right? It's one of the 13 attributes of mercy. No say Ovod v'feshev v'chato. He carries Ovon, deliberate sin, defiant sin, and inadvertent sin. That's 3 of the attributes of mercy. What does it mean he carries? Avon v'peshev chato. So we once studied in the Tova Devora, the Ramak, or Moshe Kudaviro, we find that when Cain killed his brother Hevel, and Hashem says to him, "Where's your brother?" So he says, "Hashem, Ochi Anochi, my brother's keeper." So Hashem says, "Your brother's bloods are calling from the ground." And he said to Cain, if you do tshuva, you'll continue. You have a relationship. If not, you can be thrown to the dogs. You're going to Gehenna. So Cain says to Hashem, you mean to say, if you could carry the whole world, you can't carry my sin? Take a look at Rashi over there. If you could carry the world, you underwrite the world, you mean to say you can't underwrite my sin? So Moshe Kudaviro explains it this way. When we sin, everything in existence has to be sustained by God. When a person sins, we create a negative energy and a pure energy. So he explains if a person, God forbid, fathers an illegitimate child through adultery, and afterwards the father of that illegitimate child, he can't support his child, he goes to the community and say, support my mamzer, God forbid. The community says, you created the mamzer, support the mamzer yourself. You created this illegitimate child, support him. What are you coming to us? Hashem could say, when you do a mitzvah, you create a positive energy. Hashem says, that's exactly what the world is all about. I created the world for that. So Hashem wills that energy and supports it and maintains it, that you should be a beneficiary of that energy. But a negative energy, which represents everything which is the antithesis of God's will, that energy, negative energy, which is created, you sustain it. And if the result of the sin would attach itself to a person's neshama, like he says, like a leech, sucks out the blood, that negative energy has to be sustained. The only source of sustenance it would have is the neshama of the Jew, of the person who created it. If that negative energy attaches up to the neshama, it can actually destroy him. But God says, Midas Arachmim, God says, I will sustain that negative energy to give you every opportunity to do tshuva. That it's as if you didn't sin, to be able to continue in life. That's no say ovam feshchato. So Cain said, after he killed his brother, he said, you're willing to will and sustain the whole world. And my sin of murdering my brother, the result of what, that sin, you mean that you can't underwrite. You can't assume that responsibility to sustain it. That's what Cain said to God. No say ovam feshchato. God carries. Midas Arachmim is despite at whatever level we sin, deliberate, defiant, inadvertent. Hashem says, I will underwrite that to give you every chance to do tshuva and to continue doing mitzvahs. Because if you wouldn't survive. Yisa Hashem Ponavei Lecho. Take a look in Rashi. Yichvosh Kaso. God will suppress his anger. The anger of Hashem, that's Midas Adin. Midas Adin is God will throw the book at the person. That the result of the sin will sap his neshama. If he saps his neshama, there's an immediate consequence. The person is incapacitated, or even he dies because of this. The bracha is Yisa Hashem Ponavei Lecho. He will suppress his anger. He will assume responsibility for that. As a result of that, you have shalom. You have peace. You're whole. Shalom. The root of the word shalom is shalom. You'll be whole. Whole to continue. Now, the next word, next posuk, v'somo shmi al b'nei Yisrael v'ni avorchem. You should place my name on the b'nei Yisrael, and I will bless them. What does this mean? So Rashi cites two interpretations, and it's in the Midrash. Ani avorchem. So he says, Yivorchem b'shem ha'meforosh, v'ani avorchem liYisrael, and I will bless. What does it mean? I will bless. Ask him im Kohanim. I will agree that the blessing of the Kohanim should take effect, despite the fact of their unworthiness. Davarache ani avorchem l'Kohanim. I'll bless the Kohanim. If they bless the Klal Yisrael, I will bless them. Ani avorchem. The Medrash says another interpretation. Klal Yisrael says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what are you sending the Kohanim to bless us? You said we have in Parshas Kisava, we say Hashkif Mot Kochcho Uvarech Esamcho Yisrael. We want the blessing directly from you. We don't want the blessing to come through an intermediary. I'm quoting you a Medrash Tanchuma. So Hashem says, when they bless you, they're only the conduit for the bracha. I'm the one who actually is giving the bracha. They say the words, but factually, the impact of what they say is only because I give the bracha. So in essence, I am blessing you. So it's not they're blessing you, I am blessing you. So that's a manifestation of Dashkifu Mod Kochcho Ve'asamcho Yisrael. That's what it is. It's interesting. You know, there's a concept, Tzaddik goes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim, that if there's a certain decree or a person is not worthy, but if a tzaddik gives you a bracha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will fulfill the decree of the tzaddik, even though initially that was not the will of Hashem. The person would not receive that blessing. But tzaddik goes there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim. God forbid a person has an illness, and you go to a tzaddik for a bracha. That bracha that the tzaddik gives that person is able to alter the judgment, and the person will have recovery. It's only because of the tzaddik that tzaddik goes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim. The tzaddik decrees, and Hashem fulfills the decree of the tzaddik. Hashem is bound certain times to the decree of the tzaddik. Where do we see this concept? I mean, the Medrash quotes a posuk. V'somo shmi v'ani avorchem. What's ani avorchem? When they give you the blessing, ani avorchem l'Yisrael, ask him im Kohanim. I will concur, I will agree to the Kohanim. If they say you should be blessed, I will bless you. It's only because they're giving the bracha. That's why I'm blessing them. I'm only concurring with them. Ask him, I agree that you should be blessed. But if they wouldn't give you the bracha, you're not blessed. Meaning they're able to alter the reality, whether you receive the blessing, you don't receive the blessing. So it's the concept of what tzaddik goes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim. Because they decree you should be blessed. Of course, it's through HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As a result of that, therefore, we are the beneficiaries. As a result of what they had decreed, Hashem fulfills what their decree was. And he asked him, Ima Kohanim. I concur with the Kohanim. Vahi biyom kalos Moshe lokem b'samishkan. When Moshe, the day that Moshe completed the Mishkan, Lokim. Now, who erected the Mishkan? Moshe did not participate in the building of the Mishkan, if you remember. And Klauso did everything. The Nesiim themselves, the princes, were nearly left out. Right? Because they had said, let Klauso do what they have to do, and what's lacking, we'll fill in whatever's lacking. And they nearly were left out. And what did the Nesiim provide? The Avnei Shom, Avnei Meluim, the Shoam stones and the stones for the precious stones for the breastplate. Moshe Rabbeinu did not participate. And Hashem says, your participation has greater value than all of this. Why? Because they may have developed everything, all the components for the Mishkan, but you will have the Hakomas Mishkan. You will erect the Mishkan. Therefore, your participation is greater than theirs. So this is Vayhi Biyom Kalos Moshe L'Hokim Mishkan. The day that he completed erecting the Mishkan. When did he complete erecting the Mishkan? When did the Mishkan take on a permanent status? On the 8th day, right? That's when it took on the permanent status. Every day he would erect it, he would dismantle it. and he officiated. On the 8th day, Aaron and his children were installed as Kohanim, and then the Mishkan took on a permanent level. Permanent status, wasn't dismantled, only when they would travel. So, Vahi biyom kalos, lahokim, when he finished erecting the Mishkan. Vayivshechoso, he anointed it. V'yikadish oso, v'skokelo, v'sabizbeach, v'skokelo, v'yimshochi, v'yikadish oso. He anointed every aspect of the Mishkan, its vessels, the altar, and he sanctified them. So let's take a look at Rashi. Vayibiyom kalos. Kalos ksiv. Yom HaKomas HaMishkan. It uses the word kalo. Show Yisrael kakala nechles l'chuppah. Hear this. When the Mishkan took on that permanent status, it was like a bride entering into the chuppah. That was, the 8th day was that. What exactly was that? We've mentioned many times. The Gemara says in Megillah, it says, Vahi b'yom hashmini, that the joy Hashem had on the 8th day, when the Mishkan took on its permanent status and Aaron and his children were installed as Kohanim, the joy Hashem had on that day was the same joy as he had initially when he created the world. Because it says, Vahi b'yom hashmini, and it says, Vayer vayivoker. We're going to have the buzzer going off. We're going to leave this for tomorrow.